Episode of the Everblack Podcast is brought to you by Deathwish, Hotrods and Kustoms. Check out their Instagram for all their new t-shirts, caps, beanies, cups, and the all-new Atomic Death lineup. Bill.
Hiya.
How you going, mate?
Doing all right. How about you?
Yeah, really good, man. Yeah, really good. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a little while. Hey, I think it was like last year? Before you were meant to come down for download, we had a bit of a chat. Yeah.
Yeah, God, a lot's happened since then.
Well, Bill, the new Carcass album, Torn Arteries, is out on September 17, and man, this is a really great fucking album. I'm not going to lie, I love this album a lot. And I've been cranking it for a while, and it's been in the can for a while, but it obviously got pushed back, understandably. But a week to go, man. It's not far.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive relief for all of us, just to have this thing out there, so we can move forward. Yeah, it's just been a strange time having this thing sitting there on the shelf for a couple of years.
Yeah, how far back do these songs go though? How far after Surgical Steel did you start getting to work?
Some of them go back quite far to about 2015, maybe.
Oh, wow.
It was around that period that Dan and I got together initially. Yeah, and we worked on a bunch of tunes, and then the touring machine just kind of ground into gear again, and before you knew it, 5 years had passed. So we had kind of a load of material in storage, and then when Jeff was ready to come along to rehearsals and get involved, then there was just suddenly a lot more momentum, as there would be, when the front man and the lyricist is there. So yeah, some of the material goes way back, and some of it happened during those rehearsals. So that's like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what year that would have been. Not too far up until we started recording. So I don't know when that was. Goodness, I've lost track of time.
Oh, I know, it's all happened. It seems like the last few years have just sped up. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm about to hit 40, but it's all, it just happens. I look back and I go, man, it just feels like Surgical Steel came out like 2 years ago, and here we are, but it was quite a long time ago. But
yeah, I mean, people keep reminding me it's about 8 years now. So yeah, so that's nuts.
It's crazy, dude. But we did have the Despicable EP to tide us over, which I think was pretty good, man. Yeah. It would have been frustrating to have that full album ready to go and then have to hold it back, It was a little bit frustrating, but, we're all fairly realistic. And it wasn't a huge shock when the label announced they were going to shelve it, because they just feel a lot more confident if they could put out an album that can be supported by touring. We'd finished the thing whenever it was, the previous autumn, and we were expecting it to be released. The release dates were already being pushed back a bit. 1 minute it's spring, the next minute it's summer. But neither of those dates would have happened, of course, because the pandemic struck around March. We were by no means the only band in this situation. Yeah, so right.
You just had to be philosophical about it, especially when there were so many things of real gravity happening. This seemed relatively minor, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but it feels like the right time right now, don't you? That it's coming out?
It probably is. Yeah, it probably is. It's best to be just accepting of these things. When it's something that's beyond your control, you've got to be fatalistic. And maybe this is a better time for people to hear the album than, say, 2 years ago. We'll never know.
How was it staying in touch with the boys over that last 12 months? How did you guys sort of keep it rolling, really, to this point?
Yeah, we just message each other, really. Obviously, with the changing restrictions in this country, we have been able to see each other on the odd occasion. But yeah, there were weeks and months going by there where you couldn't really do anything of substance. You couldn't travel, couldn't really socialize. So during that period, yeah, it'd just be messages, I think everyone kind of appreciated the break initially. The first few weeks seemed to suit all of us quite nicely. It's only further down the line that it became more difficult, when you're sort of wondering if things will ever be normal again.
Do you find that, now, like, you're able to make plans for the future with the album and stuff like that?
No, I would say not, because everything is so vague. Live music is coming back in this country in a very, very gradual way, but that's predominantly outdoor festivals. So the indoor stuff isn't quite as certain right now. We've got one date in the diary for this year, and that would be up in Leeds at Damnation Festival, and that is an indoor venue. So, yeah, we're just hoping it works out. It'd be a nice way to break ourselves back into this.
Absolutely, especially playing some of these live. I mean, it's different. I mean, it's different from Surgical Steel in a lot of ways. It's got more groove. It's a bit rockier, but it's got still all the signature Carcass stuff that we love. What drove that different direction this time? What sort of took it back to that sort of rocky sort of sound?
Instinct, predominantly. It's not the type of group where we sit around a table and discuss these things. We just work with the music that comes out. If we have rehearsals booked, I come in with some material and we start working on it, looking at different arrangements. Yeah, I think the biggest factor in the way this record feels and sounds would be the touring we've done. Because half a decade out there, not just tours, but doing tons of festivals and various locations. That's a lot of stage work to have under your belts. And prior to Surgical Steel, we didn't have any, at least in terms of Jeff and I had not played a gig with Dan. So that record is, it's a pretty exciting vibe, I think, but it's a lot of frantic energy, maybe a little bit unfocused in places. This one's got more in the way of dynamics, just because those lessons you learn from the stage are just going to make their way into the music without you even trying.
The title, I believe it's also a bit of a nod to Ken Owen. Is that right? Didn't he have a demo or something that had that title? Where'd it come from?
It was sort of a demo. It certainly wasn't a studio recording. It was a very kind of crude tape he made, using an acoustic guitar and books for drums, and he was screaming into the condenser mic on one of these tape recorders. And I think from bouncing the tape, with copying over to another machine or whatever, the whole thing became so distorted. It sounded like just something really insane. You would never guess that, those wasn't electric guitars and there weren't real drums. It was just depraved. At least at the age of 15, I thought it sounded fantastic. I haven't even heard it since then. The tape's long since gone missing.
Oh, man, that's a shame. That's a shame. It's something I'd love to hear. Because I remember last time we spoke, you actually told me the title, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I love that title so much, mate. It's so good.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I mean, Jeff was really insistent on it. There was a couple of other ideas floating around, which, in hindsight, just weren't very good. So, yeah, he got this right first time, I think.
And the song titles are a bit easier to pronounce compared to a couple on Surgical Steel as well. And the real early stuff. You've got, over the years, I've still have to sound out some of those very slowly, like on Reek, and it's comical how bad I can pronounce them.
I think that goes for most of us, in all truth. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of the fun for Jeff.
It's tested everybody. Well, I mean, there's a humour there. Was it Eleanor Rigor Mortis? That's one of my favourite titles. That's a great track.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Some of the tracks take a bit more work. You just don't feel like they're quite where they need to be. And this one, the main body of the track came together really quickly. I had a large chunk of music, and then it was just the middle that kind of confounded us for a short while. But the other guys are very good at, giving another angle on an arrangement. So between the three of us, we sort of sorted that one out.
So also there's the longest song on here, which is one of your longest, like ever, Flesh Ripping Sonic.
Oh, it's the longest song we've ever done, yeah.
I know, Flesh Ripping Sonic Torment Limited, which is almost 10 minutes long, and it's bang smack in the middle of the record, which usually big ones are left to the end. Yeah,
that was talked about, and then eventually we came to the conclusion it would be a cop-out, because firstly, you do give people the opportunity to skip that track, when it's the end of an album. So I guess we're making life hard for people. If they find that song tedious, it's pretty awkward because, as you say, it's right there in the middle of the album. But hopefully most people won't. We spent a long time on this song, just crafting it, getting it the way we wanted it. It was always going to be a long track, but it just grew and grew. So,
Mate.
Yeah, once we put it down and looked at the time, it was like, crikey, whatever it is, 9:45 or something like that. I don't know.
I love it. It's so good. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, I was like, man, that's a long track. So, I mean, was it, you just sort of let it go? You just sort of let it tell you how long it wanted to go for?
Yeah, that would go for any track, really. But this one was always going to be longer because the piece of music I brought in initially was already quite long. You'd have fairly substantial stretches of music before there'd be any repetition. So when you have that kind of setup, you just know that it's a different scale.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a shorter song, the repetitions happen earlier. They're quite rapid, and this is the exact opposite of that.
Well, the album cover as well, with the vegetable heart, it's like a brutal version of Ween's White Pepper, which I've heard it being described as.
That's funny because that's not a band I'm familiar with, but I believe Jeff mentioned them in an interview.
Yes,
somewhere. So you're the first person I've heard actually bring this up.
I love Ween, so I was like, "Hey, man, yeah, that's totally cool." But visually, it's memorable, and all the promo tie-ins for this thing have been awesome. Like you've got like the was it like that rot filter on Instagram? Oh, the dinner set and the color changing mug,
yeah.
mate. You guys went absolutely all out. Did you just go to Nuclear Blast? Hey, we've just got a shit ton of crazy ideas. Let's do it.
Well, no, I certainly can't claim any involvement with it at all. Some of this was kind of news to me when I started doing, phone interviews several weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So I was kind of learning as I went. The plate thing, yeah, that was a big surprise to me, but it sounds funny. I don't know if that was cooked up between Jeff and Nuclear Blast or if it was just their thing, but I suppose it's something different, Have
you got one, though?
No, I don't have a physical copy, as they say, of the album at this stage, but I guess at some point, a little package might arrive.
I would be demanding that dinner set and that color-changing mug. Just for the collection.
Yeah, I think all of us are going to insist on at least one each,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Carcass have always done things a little differently, and years ago you did a remix of Björk's Isabel, which I only recently just discovered, and it's something I'd never expect, but it kind of worked. It was really, really cool. Do you remember how that one came about?
Yeah, vaguely. I think we had a guy doing press for us. I can't remember if we employed him privately or he went through the label, but there was this really hardworking kind of conscientious fellow who's doing press for us, and he'd noticed that Björk had name checked us in an interview. I think she liked was it the Symphonies of Sickness or something like that. So I think he spotted an opportunity when he heard that she was getting remixes done by various people. He put our name forward, and they thought it'd be a cool idea. So, yeah, that was the last thing we did as a band. We'd wrapped up the recording that later became Swan Song.
Yeah.
But privately, we knew the band was just completely kaput. So it was a little bit awkward doing that stuff. I don't have the fondest memories of it. I think Jeff was quite focused. He knew what he wanted to achieve. I probably played a tiny bit, like some of that chunky power chord type stuff, and then I think Carlo did everything else, the sort of harmony bits. I've really not heard it since. I just didn't really enjoy the session, if I'm honest.
Oh wow, crazy. Going back to the start of the band, I guess did you have a job before Carcass? Did you?
No, I left school at 16, so Carcass was. I was already playing in bands around that time, and I guess by the time I was 17, I was doing Napalm and Carcass.
Yes.
So yeah, I didn't experience the world of real work until my mid-20s, once Carcass had broken up. So that was quite an education. Looking back, it was long overdue, because I just didn't have enough experience of the real world and people, because if you've just been in your little music bubble, only kind of hanging out with and dealing with people who like similar music, yeah, I mean, it's a very narrow view of the world.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what would you end up doing?
About everything you could possibly do that's low paid with low commitments. I mean, I didn't stick with any job for that long. I think initially I was working for a wine merchant. That went on for, I don't know, how many years? I think, and then, there was odd things like taking Saturday jobs in secondhand record shops. Probably the best stuff I did in terms of something that was kind of rewarding would have been working with younger people with learning disabilities down in South London. That just, gave me a reality check, as it were. It's very hard to feel sorry for yourself about your situation when you're around people who can't do many things themselves.
Yes.
So that was a really good education. And then right before the band reformed, I think the last 2 or 3 years I was working for my friend's company in his warehouse. So I had a good situation there. If Firebird had a couple of gigs or a little tour somewhere, I just had to tell them and I could go. But for the most part, I had a full-time job there, and that was actually loads of fun.
I'm in that situation right now where one of my best mates is my boss. And if I've ever got to do anything musical, like he's like, yeah, man, go for it. Where I've worked for people who are like, yeah, you can't
That's
do
brilliant.
that. Yeah, I'm very lucky right now. But man, I've been in the situation where I've literally had someone say, no, you have to work. You can't skip off early to go play a show, which pissed me right off.
Yeah.
But, it's like, hey, man, you learn from it, and I guess I appreciate things, and I guess you would too. Like, you appreciate what you're doing a little bit more after you go through those little ups and downs, the battles.
You definitely do, because if you have nothing to measure it against, you do start to take things for granted. And that's definitely what happened with me. And coming back to it, it was just easier to enjoy what we were doing, because I'd had those experiences in the outside world. So you kind of still take it seriously, but there's an element of fun that perhaps wasn't there as strongly, when you were a kid or whatever.
Absolutely. And you were meant to come down here for Download, as we mentioned before. But I was lucky to see you guys the last time you were down here in Australia, in Brisbane. That was incredible. But is there any plans to come back at some stage to make up those shows?
Well, it will entirely depend on the situation in our two countries, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'd naturally want to get back there as soon as we could, because that was pretty much the last place we were supposed to play before this kicked off. And there was even a few weeks of uncertainty, where some of us were saying, look, this is going to get, it's going to get pulled. And others were saying, no, it's definitely going to happen. It got really near the knuckle there. But in some ways, we're probably quite lucky, because I think the chances were, if we had made that journey, we would have been stranded for a while.
Yeah, and down in Australia, it wouldn't be too bad, but you probably want to go home.
Oh no, there are far worse places to be stranded, sure. Yeah, but it's a long way from home. Yeah,
that's it. It is. I've got mates that were on tour in the States who literally played one show and then they had to haul ass back, or they would have been stuck over there. And that's crazy times. But I'm definitely hoping we can see you guys again, especially. You've got all these festivals and stuff coming up next year, I believe, too, right?
Yeah, we do. That's a long way off. It would be fantastic if it all happens. But there's still this uncertainty in the air right now. To me, it will be a near miracle if we do this thing in Leeds in November.
Yeah.
That would be a sure sign that live music is really coming back. So, it's good to be optimistic, but you can't help but keep a little bit part of you kind of cautious, because of the number of U-turns we've seen from our government in this country. Things are doing quite well at the moment. Things are remarkably close to normal in many ways, but you don't want to take it for granted.
That's it, man. That's it. Have you been okay over there yourself, personally?
Yeah, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. I know people who have been quite ill with the stuff.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'd say the people I know tend to have had the virus and had practically no symptoms,
So, what else you got coming up apart from that musically? Are you jamming on anything at home, or, working on any other projects?
No, for me, this has been a time of reflection. I mean, or at least that's a very polite way of putting it. You could say just sheer laziness, really. I just didn't feel any impetus to do anything creative once we were locked away.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I started to realize most of my energy and inspiration gets from being, happens from being around other people. When I was cooped up here on my own for a few weeks, 10 weeks, whatever the hell it was, it really wasn't that difficult. But, and I was picking the guitar up pretty much every day, but that was just to play, no expectations, no pressure on it. So those kind of impulses to create and record, yeah, I mean, they're definitely coming back now because the world's opening up. But for a few months there, yeah, I was just switched off in many ways. And I just didn't want to beat myself up about it. I just figured one day it would be different.
It's good to hear you getting back into it though, bro. Of course, and hopefully, we'll see you soon. And the new album, Torn Arteries, which absolutely kicks ass, that comes out next week on September 17. Bill, It's always a pleasure talking to you, mate. It's always good hanging. And hopefully we'll have a beer soon.
Thanks, Nev. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, mate. Bye.